and I would like to convene the regular meeting of the San Mateo County Harbor District Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Brennan,
Here.
President Jake Barrell,
Present.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Here.
Commissioner Mateusz.
Here.
Great, we have a quorum, and so now we'll open up for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Okay, I do have one public comment from the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association. That was a letter that we received and from Lisa Danrosh, and I'll just summarize the letter. Basically, she was very happy about the partnership and the sponsorship and support that the Harbor District gave to the Fish and Fleet event. I think it was like last month. I can't believe it's already last month, but yes, it was last month. But she really wanted me to specifically thank the Assistant Harbor Master, Carrie Smith, for working closely with the organizers and the staff who were on duty that day, who were Dante Madrigal, Matt Hoff, Bobby Dunn, Jerry Pemberton, Dave Arlington, and Daniel Holster. So she thought that they were very helpful and wanted to thank them. So if you could give them that thanks, Steve, that would be greatly appreciated. And she also wanted to thank Debbie Garrett for all of her help as well with all of the paperwork and getting everything ready, because without that support it won't happen. So thank you for all your help too. So that's pretty much all I have here, and if there are any people out there who want to speak, I'm going to close public comment soon. So, okay, no public comment. I will close public comment and go to item 2 for commissioner comments. Tom?
No.
Ed?
I have a few things to say. We had our 2 committee meetings scheduled, and the way our committees are set up, we have 2 commissioners that are on a committee, and we don't have members of the public on the committee. So one commissioner couldn't come because she wasn't feeling well, and so we could not have an official committee meeting. However, the public, it was short notice, so members of the public did come to at least some of them came to these meetings, and so we had discussions with them, not as an official committee. And after thinking about it, it occurred to me that even though people were there and we did have this, we should not have had those discussions, because even though it was legal to do it, I don't think it was really in the spirit of communicating with the public in the right way. So I apologize for that. I think next time we'll have to find another way to do it. Probably just cancel the meeting, and people that couldn't come. That's it.
Sabrina?
Yes, so a couple things. I was in San Diego last week for the California Coastal Commission hearing, and I attended on Friday, which was the day that the commission heard the staff report on the coastal development permit for the World Surf League for the Mavericks surf competition. And I brought with me a letter which was jointly signed by myself and our board president, Virginia Chang Corrali. We submitted the letter as individuals, not as commissioners, in support of the staff report and in support of approval of the CDP. There were a number of people there supporting approval of the CDP, including the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing, which I was there to represent, along with attorney Karen Tynan and a number of other people, including Corey Schumacher, who's 2-time world champion, longboard surfer. The big wave surfers couldn't make it because they're all busy trying to make money so they can keep surfing. So yeah, everybody's kind of broke because there's been big swell in Hawaii recently, and in Mexico recently, and so everybody was there for a while. So anyhow, that went really well. There was a unanimous approval of the CDP, and a lot of really positive things were said by various people on the Coastal Commission as well as the public comment. And next step is that the State Lands Commission will be hearing an item tomorrow at their meeting in Sacramento regarding a lease agreement with the World Surf League for the Mavericks competition. I will be going to that meeting and speaking again for the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing, and we will be thanking the staff for their excellent report, and also urging the 3-member commission to approve the lease agreement, which I feel confident will happen, and that will close out the most difficult part of the permitting process for the World Surf League to move the event forward for this season if we have the conditions to warrant it. And a lot of people have their fingers crossed that the conditions come through this season and we have our first competition that includes both men and women. So that's the update.
Nice.
Great.
I have one more thing. I forgot
Sure.
to say. So I forgot to say that in November, I'll be going to a meeting at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, specifically on wildlife disturbance. It's a meeting that's attended by members of the public, but also non-government organizations and all the government organizations that have an interest in this. So that would be NOAA, Fish and Game, and so on. I'll be giving a 20-minute talk on what's happening here in the harbor and what we've been doing to work with the public to try to make some changes. And I'll report back in November.
Great. When is that in November?
Don't remember the date.
Okay. We're not going to miss our meeting.
No, I won't miss the meeting.
Oh, can I make
Yeah,
one last
go ahead.
comment? I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Lorenas on his endorsement in the Half Moon Bay Review today, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to piggyback on Sabrina's Coastal Commission comment, because I thought that was a huge win, and I'm glad that the Harbor District could play a small role in it, so thanks for doing that, Sabrina. I thought it was great that we could do our joint letter, and that was, I felt like Sabrina, I asked her, what can I do to help? And I said, I'll write the letter. And she's like, okay, write the letter. And so
That was helpful.
So that was really good, and I think that the Coastal Commission, who has one of our members of the Board of Supervisors on there, and, like,
Carol
thought it was
Marie.
good. We were,
Yeah, everybody got a copy.
yeah, and, but that's, thanks to Sabrina and, CEWS, right? And-
Hughes, yeah.
Yeah,
Hughes.
and, Karen for, doing something great. And I want to apologize, Ed, he, unfortunately, Ed got my reneging of coming to the two meetings, because I just felt so sick, that I've had these personal medical issues, and so that was a last minute cancel, so I want to also apologize to the public for that, and for Ed putting me in that spot. The other thing is, we also had a site visit, which was a meeting that was planned on October 9th, so 3 of us were there for that, and, what is that for me?
Yeah, it's when the date of the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay,
November 5.
Okay, good, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I thought that was a good meeting. Steve, thank you for setting it up. Steve McGraw, General Manager, and I thought that we had, some good input from the 3 commissioners who were there. So I appreciate Ed and Sabrina taking time for, going to that too. The last thing is, I hosted or co-hosted with our General Manager, Assembly members Mark Berman and Kevin Mullen. I suggested they come and take a harbor boat rescue or harbor rescue boat tour, just to see what we do and to see, what the coast side is like for them, because they're not on this part of in this part of the county. So I think they had a really good time. They got a great perspective, I think, of what we do, and also what the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association does, representing the commercial fishing industry. So, I wanna thank Lisa Damrosch too, I know she's not here, so if you could thank her, Steve, that would be great. But I think that if we can do things like that, it'll get people more interested in what we do and to see a part of the harbor district that people don't normally see. So that's pretty much my commissioner comment. Tom?
You know, it just reminded me, when I heard about the Committee for Women's Equity in Surfing, I didn't know that I had inadvertently paid to promote a lot of Facebook posts. And Commissioner Brennan had a credit card left over from when we worked together. And there was Surf Rider things that were promoted by Commissioner Brennan, Fix Our Harbors things, personal things. And I have asked Commissioner Brennan to look at her Facebook account and come swear with me on how she used my credit card without my authorization.
I'd like to follow up by saying that these allegations are completely unsubstantiated, and I don't know what you're talking about, Tom, but it sounds crazy. I did not fraudulently use your credit card.
Well, I do have the statement from Facebook, and you said you were gonna check your Facebook account when we talked.
I
Because I did
fact-checked
make a
it.
sheriff's report about this.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Okay, so, let's move on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone do you wanna pull anything off of the consent?
I'd like to pull off bills and claims.
Okay, anything else from anyone else? Is there a motion to approve items 2 through 5 on the consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion before we vote? Okay, roll call please.
President Champerlain,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. So I'm actually gonna move bills and claims to be the first item under our discussion items. Just because we need to pay the bills and move forward with getting our finances in order. So Sabrina, you pulled this off.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a couple quick questions. There's a law firm that I didn't recognize on here, and it's also on the legal fees section of the report. They're new to me. Maybe you guys have mentioned it, but I don't remember. What is this? Boyett and Griffiths or something like that?
The arbitrator.
Oh, that's for the arbitrator. Okay, I wasn't sure what that was. And is that the total amount for the arbitrator, or is there more coming?
I think this is it. But there might be a small cleanup.
Okay. And then, the architect, there's a $7,000 thing for an architect. Was that for the new sidewalk, or
Can you,
John,
Matthews?
Matthews?
Matthews is doing the harbor master's office and this office.
Okay. Okay, and then I see Lieber Cassidy, but I didn't see Hanson Bridget on here. Is that just?
Bill came in too late to make.
Oh, I see. Okay. That was all.
Okay, any other discussion on bills and claims?
No.
Okay, is there a motion to approve bills and claims?
I move that we approve.
Second.
Okay, Sabrina moved and Tom seconded. Roll call please.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
President Champerlain,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Sabrina.
Commissioner Brennan.
Oh, aye. Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Okay, so the motion carries. So we will now move to item 6 for the San Mateo Resource Conservation District Partnership Update.
All the stuff moved. I just finally noticed it. Where's all the stuff?
Alex isn't here.
Okay, so Steve, John has a report. I know we have a presentation. Is,
Oh, yeah.
do you want to just talk about item 6 while we get the,
Let's see.
I mean, there may not even be anything to talk about. I mean, it's just a receipt
We
report.
ready?
So she'll be here by 7 o'clock and we'd like to
Okay.
ask that
Okay.
the presentation be.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we should have them
That's
do
fine.
that presentation.
So we'll, okay, then can we just move to item 8, I'm just trying to, we have some changes in schedule, so I'm trying to be as respectful of people's schedules as possible. So if we could move to item 8, and Neil, I know that this is early, but item 8 is the CalPERS unfunded accrued liability.
And actually, our accounting manager, Boomer Hanthorn, is going to be doing a presentation for this item and presenting this item.
Thank you. Thanks, Boomer.
Okay. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, tonight I'm going to be talking about our CalPERS unfunded accrued liability paydown proposal. I'm going to try to keep this short and simple. But, let's go ahead. CalPERS, what is CalPERS? CalPERS is our defined benefit pension plan for the Harbor District. All of our employees are members of the CalPERS pension plan. Basically, our employees work, they make contributions into CalPERS, the employer makes contributions into CalPERS, that money gets invested, and CalPERS guarantees a 7% return upon retirement. Our employees are in 2 separate plans in CalPERS. They're in Classic and PEPRA. And I have the funded status here as of our most recent CalPERS actuarial evaluation. Just to give a little bit more detail, we have 14 employees in the Classic plan and 18 employees in the PEPRA. And as of right now, our PEPRA plan is at about 96% funded, and our Classic plan is at 72%. It's also worthwhile to note that PEPRA started in 2013, so it's relatively new. This happened with the pension reform back then. So yeah. Okay, what is our UAL? UAL stands for unfunded accrued liability. Basically, this is the dollar amount that the Harbor District owes CalPERS for cumulative years of underperformance. So as of the most recent report, our Classic UAL balance is this $4.66 million, and our PEPRA UAL is $13,000. And again, the reason the PEPRA is so small is because it started in 2013. Classic is our legacy pension plan, so that's since inception. The total combined amount of our UAL as of the most recent report is $4.68 million. Just to give a little bit more detail, our unfunded accrued liability, it's made up of layers that they call bases. Basically, each year, CalPERS will, if the investments do well, then if they overperform, we have a gain, and that works for us. But most often the case, the investments don't do well, and they underperform, so we get hit with a liability. Basically, the Harbor District needs to make up that amount for these poor years of performance. So for example, like for us, 2013 was not a good year. So we are paying these annual payments to CalPERS to help pay down this liability. Every year we get charged a payment, it's in the upwards of $300,000 annually to pay down this UAL, and we've been making those minimum required payments. But what we're noticing is that when we remain the status quo, we continue to pay this minimum required amount, it's not paying down our UAL. And the reason for that is because the amount of interest that is being added on to our liability, it outweighs the amounts that we're paying down. Does anyone have any
Compounded
questions?
interest. Yeah, it's a killer.
Yeah. Okay, so what staff is recommending is that we pay them 50% of this combined UAL, about $2.3 million, and we pay it down beginning with the newest base. CalPERS actually gives us a lot of discretion in terms of how we can apply this payment. And we looked at a couple of options, and I actually worked with someone at CalPERS in their actuarial office to get these numbers. But basically, this chart here is showing if we pay $2.3 million, it will save us $3.4 million in the long run. So kind of think of it as like we pay $2.3 million now to save $3.4 million in the long run, I guess. We looked at a couple of options. We decided with $2.3 million because we thought kind of conservatively it's a good place to start. It's 50% of our whole liability. $1 million, even though it has maybe like a higher return investment, it wouldn't really make a dent in our UAL, so that's where we kind of landed on this number. And I guess, the obvious question is, where does that put our reserves? I updated this slide. This is a slide from our final 18-19 budget of our reserves that includes our 5-year CIP plan. And I updated the 630 number here with our actual ending balance of reserves. I kept everything else the same. So basically, what we're showing is if we stay within budget and we make this $2.3 million payment and follow our 5-year CIP plan, we're still coming in, we still got a lot of wiggle room to meet our minimum total reserve requirement here. The closest we'll come to it is in fiscal year 22 here. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions? I tried to keep it real simple and sweet.
Could you go back to the last slide just so that one's left
Sure.
up?
The graph.
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand this. Could you just kind of go over that again for me?
Sure. So this was I guess this is a graph from our budget, the final budget for fiscal year 18-19. And I just updated it. I updated it for this fiscal 18 number here. This is the actual. So this is what our cash actually was for our reserves at June 30th, 2018, at 18.8 million. I updated that number and kept everything else in the graph the same. So following our 5-year CIP, as well as making this proposed $2.3 million payment, this is what will happen to our reserves over the next 5 years, estimated.
So basically, we have enough to pay, actually we have enough to pay for the whole amount, but they're breaking it up in half. So do you want to expound a little bit on how you came up with the 50% of the payment being made?
The conservative accountant in me just thought it would be good to pay half now, then wait a year, and we'll see what happens in a year. We'll look at the reserve amount again at that time.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
These reserves only go down if we are doing every project that we have in our 5-year CIP.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And
I thank you for that.
I have one question. So where it flattens out, where does that land without, that's because I don't have the original budget in front of me. Where would the original budget sit with respect to that? You know what I'm
not
asking?
sure. I don't have it either.
Okay. I can
You
find
mean
it.
this $8 million?
I can get back to you on that though. Sure.
I mean, I have it, I just don't have it with me. So
Are you talking about this which part are you talking
Yeah.
about, the $8 million?
Yeah.
How could we prevent ourselves from getting into this situation again, or what, do you have any kind of forward-thinking sort of planning advice, or
Which situation?
we
We have to
haven't,
have it
but we
haven't
unfunded.
funded, yeah.
It's pretty unfortunately standard.
Yeah, I know it's real common.
It's
It's because of the 7%.
It's because
So
of the
if I can-
7
if I can jump in.
freaking percent.
The SOP has been almost like making the minimum payment on a credit card.
Yeah.
It just stretches everything out forever, and the interest paid by the time you get done is enormous. If we do this year, and then River comes back next year and pays down the other half, then I think it would be incumbent upon us to annually look at the budget, look at the latest actuarials for PERS, and see how much of that we can pay now. I think the PEPR is a really good example. That's a new fund. It doesn't accrue an unfunded liability as quickly because the benefits aren't as good in the PEPR pension plan as they are. So there's not the associated long-term debt with it, or obligation with it.
Which is why we are switching.
Which is why the PEPR stands for the Public Employee Pension Reform Act. And
Okay.
it was a response in 2012 to this looming pension crisis.
To address it.
So now, if you join a public agency now and you've never worked for a public agency before, you go into this PEPR pension plan with a benefit like this. If you are a classic member from before 2013, your benefits are better.
Okay.
So what we
Which is
could
also
certainly,
called the classic plan.
yeah, so what we could certainly do is, as we bring the budget to you every year, look at certainly the PEPR one, and for example, that $13,000 that is accrued since 2013, just not let that ever build up, just keep that paid down. And then on an annual basis, if we pay it off next year, we'll come to you as part of the budget process and say, we'd like to allocate this extra so that we don't stop building up this unfunded accrued liability again.
Would it help if we had a policy that, because, you know, you're leaving, Steve, so, like, should we have a policy where the board is always reminded to address this issue? I mean, staff comes and goes, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense to make?
So let me just chime in for a second. This item was actually something that Anita brought up to me as a finance committee member. And I was trying to get it onto the finance committee agenda, but we just could not schedule, and part of it was on my stuff too. But I thought it was an important enough issue that it should go on this agenda so that we can at least start paying down this, but really this was Anita's idea. I mean, we talked about it before, I've brought it up in general, but I think Anita really glommed onto the issue and thought, yeah, we can afford this with our reserves. So what we could do, and is talk about some ideas, but I know that some agencies have like a bucket where they can put extra reserves or, you know, whatever we get into that bucket for the express purpose of paying this kind of thing down. I mean, and that's something we can talk about later, we can talk about it at a finance committee, it doesn't matter. I just thought that when Anita brought this issue up, that we could afford to pay some of this, actually we can afford to pay all of it down, that it would be a good opportunity to do that, and we can talk about a policy
Yeah.
another time.
It'd be
But
nice to
you
have it.
have to be careful with the policy that you're not locked in.
Yeah, I don't wanna get locked into
Right.
anything, but on the other hand, I just don't want us to forget.
You know, that's why we might want to establish a bucket of some kind, so. But what's before us today is to pay off to about 50% of the total unfunded accrued liability. Now, if you really want to do something, maybe we can lobby the state legislature to deal with CalPERS in a reasonable way, but we're not there yet. Tom, you have any
No,
comments?
just, I'm shocked when it said the underperformance of the fund, and we're gonna make up the difference. And it's like,
Taxpayers make up the difference.
That's taxpayers, harbor district, our
Yeah.
enterprise, non-enterprise funds, it's our employees, but, it's a great deal.
Well, they do have a new person in charge at CalPERS. So,
Controversial.
yes, there's some controversy there, but I think the idea is they're trying to, do things differently, so we'll have to watch and see if that actually happens or not. So I move that we authorize, district staff to make a one-time payment to CalPERS for $2,300,000 to pay down the district's unfunded accrued liability or in another amount as determined by this commission. We don't want that part of the motion, so forget that.
This
part.
is
Yeah.
We're ending
Basically, you're
it,
making the motion to pay down
we're
2.3
ending
million.
it, yes, we're ending it with,
Unfunded accrued.
unfunded
UAL.
accrued liability, period.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call. Betty, any comments? Okay, roll call please, Debbie.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
President Shankarelli?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Boomer.
Boomer, and thank you, Anita. It's a great idea. So, is someone from the Conservation District here?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
You are up. We're on item 6, which is a presentation by the San Mateo Resource Conservation District. Just an update.
I'm TJ Galaffi from Lost Beach and president of the board of the Resource Conservation District. And just to say again how pleased we are to have a partnership with the Harbor District that we've had for several years and work together to improve the water quality here in the harbor and ultimately get rid of those warning signs. So Julia is going to give the presentation here and Kellex has been delayed, so let's go ahead.
Thank you, TJ.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, good, and you know what it said.
Okay.
And it is revised from what was in the packet.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
It's just, we just knocked the mic.
Okay. Hi, thank you all for having me here. My name is Julian Carroll. I am Program Assistant for the Water Quality Program at the San Mateo Resource Conservation District. Brittany, who is the head of that program, sadly could not be here, so I'm here instead. But still very happy to be here and let you know about all the exciting work we've got going on. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So, I think we did, oh, never mind, that should be fine. So what have we been up to? I'll be diving into all of these in a bit more detail, but just kind of as a brief overview. We've been mainly focusing on 4 aspects of work. Stormwater infrastructure, which involves mapping, cleaning, inspecting the stormwater system, and planning for improvements based on what we find. We have education and outreach. We have water quality monitoring and reconnaissance. Lots of sampling going on. Mainly of note is the bacteria source ID study that we have completed. And lastly, the first flush planning program, which is also partially funded by the Harbor District. So it's a really fantastic volunteer program where we've got everything essentially ready to go, and we're just waiting for the rain. So to go into a bit more detail here, mainly in regards to the stormwater infrastructure. Recently we have inspected and cleaned the south parking lot area, so that means bringing in a contractor and actually scoping the lines, putting a little video camera down there and seeing what's going on, seeing foreseen problems and such. We are planning for additional cleaning in the north parking lot, which is an area that we had inspected and cleaned last year. And so that there are just a few areas that we weren't able to clean just because of some complications that we ran into and weren't able to get it done.
Quick question, can you describe a little more what the south parking lot is and
Certainly.
what the north parking lot is?
Certainly, yes.
Where they are?
Just to kind of make it easier to follow, we kind of had to split the parking lot areas into 2 main sections just because it's too large to tackle all at once. The north parking lot area is essentially everything north of the road that's right on Johnston Pier. I forget the name of that stretch of road.
Your old Princeton?
Yes, yeah.
Old Princeton, your Princeton.
Yeah, exactly. So the south parking lot is essentially all the Harbor District area north of that, or the north area is everything north of that.
Got it.
South area is everything south.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. let's see, so we plan for additional cleaning going on in that area. We are always working to mitigate dumping down storm drains. I believe recently we provided Harbor District with a few no dumping stickers to put on some storm drains, and we're always kind of working with the tenants to keep them informed about what they're doing and their potential impacts. And lastly, I believe with the sidewalk expansion going on right now down on Harbor District property, at the same time we are having really the worst broken pipes that we found during the first set of inspections fixed. And so, as I've been informed today, they are, as of today, fixed. So that's fantastic. You can actually see a picture down at the bottom there of one of the pipes that had cracks in it, and there was water and sediment leaking in. And so it was great to patch that up. So regarding education and outreach, we've been kind of all over the place. There's been a lot going on this year. But some things of note, you may have seen us at the Half Moon Bay Pumpkin Festival, basically giving out information about keeping water clean and all of the work we're doing to ensure it stays that way. We were also at the Pacific Coast Dream Machines. For our pet waste is one of the large focuses of our outreach, just informing people through social media, wet weather alerts to let people know to pick up after the pets before it rains, which can have huge impacts into the water systems, and doing guerrilla outreach and stuff like that, kind of just showing up, giving out information, trying to make it just the information that's accessible as possible. Snapshot Day, which is the similar to First Flush, which is our other annual large-scale volunteer sampling program. We actually had the hub for that in the harbor, actually right next to the harbor offices down there. And so it was fantastic. We were able to set up a tent and have all our volunteers meet there, and it was a great opportunity for just passersby to come up and ask what we were doing, and they were all really engaged and asking a bunch of questions, so it was really a fantastic opportunity. And lastly, we've had a few presentations in the recent past to the Mid-Coast Community Council and Kristen Task Force, and we've also been engaging with schools. We had one really great presentation to the Half Moon Bay High School biology class, AP biology class, and they actually had a whole bunch of really interesting water quality projects going on, and so we were able to kind of go back and forth on that. It was really great. So water quality monitoring. We've been doing a lot of recon, a lot of sampling, and so I just want to give you a brief rundown of what we've been finding. So really the largest impacts that we've been seeing, especially through our microbial source tracking, which, to break that down for you, is essentially tests that we can do to kind of find out what animals certain bacteria are coming from. And so bacteria is really the pollutant of concern in this the harbor. And so we're mainly looking at dog sources, specifically in the residential areas, mainly in the Denison watershed. And so we're really beginning to hone in on that and seeing what the potential sources for that are and what we can do about that. There's been little indication of human sources in all of the microbial source tracking we've done. However, there has been a really large role of groundwater and sediment through various cracks and systems. You have groundwater and sediment leaching in, and so that can have a whole slew of impacts. Sediment has been found in studies to exacerbate bacterial problems. And so, of course, lastly, we have some aggravators in the systems, grease, oil, organics, things like that, kind of throw the whole system out of whack. Again, really in stormwater systems, all you really want to be seeing in there is water. And so anything that's not water in there can have a whole range of consequences. So, next steps, what are we working towards? So our bacteria source ID report from all the sampling we've done is due March 2019. We're working on putting all of that data together and writing it. We have
always constantly working to better understand the groundwater and sediment dynamics, those impacts to the systems that we're seeing. We have planned the additional cleaning at the north parking lot for summer 2019. Again, we were not able to get that done last summer just because of the complexity of the problem. South parking lot, inspection results, recommendations, and map, and all that we are putting together, and that should be provided fairly shortly. We're continuing to expand the pet waste education and outreach program, which is funded by the county, but has far-reaching positive effects, especially to the harbor and the surrounding watersheds. We're continuing to work with the tenants and the harbor staff to identify and also implement best practices. We want to make sure, again, that only water is really ending up in the stormwater system. We're having some fun designing the watershed and pollution education sign that's going to be right at the entrance to Johnston Pier. We're currently putting together drafts for that, and hopefully should have something for you very soon. We've had a lot of fun kind of putting that together. And lastly, we are providing information and engaging in regulatory compliance for the new TMDL that's coming out. So,
TMBL?
What is?
yes, TMDL. So I expected this question. So TMDL is total maximum daily load. Its name is a bit confusing, but essentially it's regulations that come out of the Regional Water Quality Control Board for water bodies that are designated impaired on the 303D list. So that's essentially they are coming up with new regulations, and so we're engaging with the people involved in that to provide information and expertise and help in whatever way we can.
Tightening the amount of pollutant that's allowed to go in, allowed to flow in.
All right, and that was it. That was just kind of a quick rundown of what we've been up to, what's going on, and what you can expect from us in the near future. Not sure.
Yeah, why don't we introduce Alex and
Yeah.
see if she has some comments too.
Oh, so Kelly Knudsen, the executive director of the RCB is here. I'm not sure if you have anything to add, but
I can't explain what TMDL is if anybody wants, but I mean, you know the program as well as I do.
I have questions.
Yeah,
Can you, it might be a little premature, but can you tell us where you're doing the source tracking, and is there a time component to it, or just a little more detail about the general plan? Like, I saw that you did Denniston, but are you doing the Capistrano outflow or other places, or are you just focusing on Denniston?
Yes. We did the source tracking study on all of the watersheds that are flowing into the harbor. And so we have data ranging across, Denniston, Capistrano, both at the outfall and in some farther up the storm drain systems and such. So it was a pretty comprehensive study.
Oh, cool. So look forward to seeing.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
us doing this.
and it was lab.
Yes. So we were doing the sampling, but the program is technically run by a contractor company. So, yeah.
So we'll have to, when the report comes out, you'll come back and maybe we'll give more time so we can have a big discussion about it.
Yeah, so the microbial source tracking was a program of the county. The contractor was a consulting firm. We assisted with them collecting the samples, and they'll provide the analysis. And of course, when we present here, we're sharing with you not only the things that you have funded, but also all of the other things that we're able to integrate into that. So any information we can give you, we just do, regardless of whether or not it came through the harbor district. So whatever we learn from that, we'll share with you, but you can also ask them directly to present to you their results.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Questions?
Anything else?
No, no questions, thank you. Thank you
All right, yeah,
very,
thank you
very
for having
much, and TJ, thanks for your leadership of all of this too, and I know that the Harbor District is very appreciative of being able to collaborate with y'all, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, so I see that Adam from Home Center Bridget is here. I need to skip around because Commissioner Brennan needs to leave a little earlier. So I'm gonna go into closed session for item 9 right now. And
So
then-
could we explain to the public, 'cause I know there's some people
Well, let
waiting.
me, yeah, so, do you wanna give us a little bit about what's happened in open session before we go, like, a little bit of the background?
Well, we'll talk about that, I mean, it's up to you, what you'd like to say in open session or closed session.
Well, I
I'm
was
not sure
just,
what you're asking.
I was
What do
thinking,
you- yeah.
I was thinking that what we might wanna say is that we have a closed session scheduled on this. Ideally, the closed session should come before item 10, logically. But I know there are people here waiting for item 10. So what we were gonna do is go into closed session, do item 9, and then come back out and do item 10, which is what we know people are waiting for. I don't know what everyone's waiting for, but I know there are some people that are waiting here for 10.
Well,
Does that make sense?
that totally makes sense, but, what I want to do, because we have to vote as a commission on item 10, is for us to, hear what our attorneys have to say.
First.
Before we, so that we get all the information, and then we can have the discussion in open session. So, procedurally, we'll just follow what is on the agenda at this time.
9 and 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we're now going to go into
Go into
closed
closed
session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, existing litigation regarding the 3 captains arbitration dispute.
Yep.
We're now in closed session. Are we going into the?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll go
Item 10, which is to adopt a resolution number 1815 to authorize 3 Captain Seafood to install and use a hoist on the south side of Johnson Pier. Steve McGraw, would you like to present the report for this item? I do have a public comment, but I'd like for you to present your report first
Thank you.
before I take public comment.
Thank you, President Shankarelli. As you can see, this is a motion, this is a request to adopt a resolution authorizing 3 captains to install and use a second hoist at a location on the south side of Johnson Pier described on the map. This is a result of a process that began, the district as a civil staff report has a lease with 3 captains. The lease allows 3 captains and all other fish buyers the right to a second hoist. The district has at various times considered requests from 3 captains for a second hoist, including on the south side of the pier in 2014, and then again on the north side of the pier in October 2016, which approval was rescinded in February of 2018. 3 captains disputed the February 2018 determination. The matter was submitted to binding arbitration. This took place at the beginning of September, and the final report has been issued, has been distributed, and is on the website. The 3 captains' demand for lost profits and other damages in the neighborhood of $900,000 was denied, except for $25,000. But the arbitrator also ruled that on or before Wednesday, October 17th, today, we must adopt a resolution confirming that 3 captains may install and use a second hoist at the south side location. 3 captains is also entitled to recover its attorney's fees incurred since the February 2018 action, not attorney's fees prior to that. So those fees have been included in the final award, amount of $245,000. This does not absolve 3 captains of the necessity of applying for a coastal development permit, but it does require us to approve that location by resolution, which is attached to your staff report this evening. With Hanson Bridget, Adam Hoffman is here. Adam tried the arbitration. General Counsel Steve Miller is here. And I sat through that arbitration. I sat through a deposition and through the 5 days of the arbitration. And I think that it was a well fought battle from a difficult starting position by Adam Hoffman, who I think did an extraordinary job. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure would Adam or Steve Miller.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to public comment first before we go into, before we have our discussion. And I have a public comment card from Porter McHenry. Thank you, Porter. And you pass these out too for the commissioners, right? Is this back there as well?
Do what?
Is this in the back? as
No,
well?
I just had enough for you guys.
Thank you.
Well, we're still here. This has been a long, drawn-out ordeal. Most of you commissioners weren't even involved in the onset, and sorry you got dragged into this, but here we are. I saw the outcome in arbitration, and I read it over. It seemed somewhat one-sided reading it over, but it ended how it ended. That's fine. One issue I have with our lease in there, we signed an amendment in March 2017 that the south side should be kept free and clear for access. I know it was signed that the leasee at the time was my father. I assume we signed the other leasees. And now you're directing them to propose a hoist in an area that is supposed to be kept free and clear. I see that as a breach of our lease. I know you got lots of issues, but at some point they gotta, figure this thing out. The other issue I have is you're looking to install a hoist that can directly affect my business. We propose a spot that has no boundaries. There's no right of way to access. Right now, 3 captains, they have the right of way from his unloading spot in the back of the building extending out. If you install a hoist further on the dock, and I have a large vessel, and there's another large vessel that 3 captains like to unload, who has the right of way? Right now, there's nothing in the lease, nothing binding, and that's going to cause nothing but issues. We try to end this and stop the fights. I feel sorry for you guys. It's in a bad spot, but I don't know where to go. Maybe you can allow the hoist. If the lease, the captain signed, maybe they won't install the hoist. I don't know. Good luck. Here we go.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'll keep public comment open while the commissioners discuss this too, just in case someone wants to come up later on, but please be mindful of the fact that the commissioners are gonna have a discussion first, and then I'll ask for public comment, or if at any time you'd like to make a public comment, you can fill out a card. So, y'all wanna start with me?
Does anyone want to go before me?
Tom?
I'll go
Ed?
first.
Okay.
Well, Porter, I think your characterization of it was fairly accurate. So I'm one of those new commissioners that kind of inherited this disaster. It goes way back. I know this because I've lived in the area for a long time. And like I said at another public meeting, the way these leases were set up, we were going to be in conflict in one way or another. I believe that our renovation of the pier is really important. We haven't been able to do it for whatever reason. We've been working towards getting this done, but when we do that, if and when we do that, that's the time when these issues should really be resolved. And my belief is, if I'm still here when this happens, is that it needs to be resolved with all the community working together so that the things you're talking about don't happen. And it's unfortunate that we are where we are. I'm not sure how we're going to resolve this at this point in time, but I can definitely understand the problem. Tom, you have something?
Having worked out of this harbor for well over 20 years, we need more hoists. Somewhere, somehow, I've mentioned before bringing Big Ed in with a crane for a while. It's only about 2 weeks. But right now, we're short of hoists, no matter how you look at it. So the harbor needs a hoist somewhere, somehow. I can't believe we're relitigating this for about the umpteenth time and bringing this forward. We need another hoist. We've talked so many different things about pier design. We've talked about moving all the bait freezers off. We've talked about a lot of different things that aren't in our strategic plan at this point. We need another hoist. I mean, it's incredible if you haven't been down there at the start of crab season to see how crazy it is and how people have to wait for hours or days even when everybody comes in loaded with crab first couple times. How do we solve this hoist problem? Every time we bring it to the board, something happens. Is everybody happy with the arbitrator? Maybe not. We've got a ruling. What can we do down the line? How can we look past this? How can we make it better for the next people that have a business on the pier, a wholesale operation? Where do you come up with a location that makes more people satisfied? Our pier is too small right now. In the 90s, fishing was tapering off. We had a bad time. We had reports from EcoTrust saying commercial fishing was dying, couldn't get people in, couldn't get people to work. But right now, commercial fishing's back good. Sometimes we've got crab, sometimes we've got salmon. We don't have a way to unload these things in an efficient manner on that small pier. How do we make the pier bigger? How do we make it so that somebody else can come in with a business and be happy with a hoist location? Right now, we don't have enough hoists, period. There's no other way to describe the situation. So what's gonna solve that?
Sabrina?
Thanks.
And we can go back around for discussion, so you don't have to say everything right now if you want to listen to others too.
Okay. So first of all, I appreciate that one of the other fish buyers is here this evening. And I just want to say that I'm very concerned in reading this. I feel like our legal team failed us. And I feel very strongly that the other side had testimony that we did not match. And that was wrong. That was a failure on the part of our representation. Super disappointed. We've got Scott Grindy. We've got cast of really unfortunate characters such as Peter Burnell giving so-called expert testimony in this thing. What a joke. We didn't have anybody representing any of the other fish buyers. We didn't have fishermen speaking to the arbitrator. No commissioner was heard from during this process. Instead, we had Steve McGraw as our only testimony, and he wasn't even around when all of this stuff was going on. So that was an epic failure. I'm really disappointed with how this went. And I can only imagine where the breakdown was. But it is what it is. I'm certainly not voting for it. This right here, this provides an unfair business advantage to one person. One person gets an unfair business advantage from this. And also, it creates some major safety hazards that put everybody else at risk. The public, other fishermen, other fish buyers, so on and so forth. So for those reasons alone, there's no way that I would vote in favor of this. Other commissioners can do whatever they want. So, I'm just really disappointed. I think that our legal team did not think this through very well and didn't allow the experts, the true experts, the fishermen and the fish buyers to speak for themselves to the arbitrator, and we should have facilitated that. We should have allowed that to happen because that definitely, there was plenty of so-called expert testimony from Peter Grinnell, and I think we all know his history, and Scott Grindy. And who else? Did they have others, or was it just those two? This is a question for Adam.
There were a couple of fishermen. Mr. Furtado, of course, testified.
I expect that.
A couple of fishermen.
So 5 people? They had 5 people speak to the arbitrator?
Oh, yes, and also an employee of 3 captains, Jason.
2 fishermen, an employee of 3 captains, the owner of 3 captains, Scott Grindy, Peter Grinnell, so now we're up to 6 people. Anybody else?
No.
Why not Larry's son? He wasn't there?
He was not there.
Okay, so we have 6 total people, and on the opposing side, and then we have 1 person on our side.
One additional person.
1 additional person in addition to you, the lawyer.
No, we also examined, including Mr. Furtado in particular, who we would have called if he hadn't testified on his own. We examined all the other witnesses and they.
But we didn't provide any other person other than Steve McGraw.
Correct.
We only provided 1 person to give information to the arbitrator.
In addition to those that we cross-examined, correct?
Yeah, but they're not our people. They're the people from the opposing side.
Well, they had significant evidence to offer.
I'm sure they did. So that doesn't make any sense. And I've gotten calls from the public already today, and that's exactly what people are saying. They're reading this and they're saying, why wasn't I able to talk to the arbitrator? I had something really valuable that needed to be heard. I'm just like, I'm so disappointed with how this was handled. I'm not surprised, because I've been disappointed with our legal counsel for years, but I'm just incredibly disappointed.
President Shankar, if I
Yes,
could address that.
Please.
Scott Grindy and Peter Grinnell and others testified to potential damages, to actions that occurred prior to, while they were still working for the district. The damages claim was successfully argued by Adam and reduced from $900,000 to $25,000. And the damages, the attorney's fees that were awarded were for everything from February of 2018 on. The decision turned on a matter of law, not a matter of what was fair or right, or how much fish was getting caught, or where hoists could be, or anything like that. It was, I mean, I can't speak to the matter of law, I'm not a lawyer, but I think the characterization of your counsel's efforts
It's
are
my
unfair.
opinion, and I'm entitled to it.
I absolutely agree. You're
Thank
entitled
you.
to your opinion.
Thank you.
I'm offering my opinion.
I'm looking at $270,000
That's
that we
right.
have to pay. That's what I'm looking at it.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the fact that we only had you to speak on our behalf to the arbitrator, and I'm disappointed with that, Steve, very disappointed with that. I think this was mishandled. So that's my position, that's my perspective on it. And at the end of the day, what we're now being asked to do is agree to an unfair business decision, something that's going to disadvantage a group of other fishermen and fish buyers too, particularly, that's gonna perfectly tee up another lawsuit, because we are now going to be damaging these other individual businesses, okay? Not good, not good at all, you know? So how much is that gonna cost? And how much did we spend on these 2? You know, that's not in this 200 and, what is it, 200? So what are we looking at total here? You know, well over $300,000. And a potential lawsuit. Because now we're gonna be disadvantaging 2 fish buyers and their customers, and we're also gonna be putting the public at risk. in a safety hazard situation, which is also potential lawsuit. So this is really messed up. Not good at all.
So, another consequence of this, and I think you alluded to it, if you didn't state it directly, Porter, is that as there is always a tension between commercial enterprises to get their product to businesses, to the buyers, we've created a situation where we've made that even worse, because now the conflict's going to be exacerbated by the way these hoists are set up. That's a problem that we've created by, well, because of the history of this, but also because it seems to me, I wasn't at this arbitration, but it seems from what I've read in the documents, there were no descriptions of coming from folks like Porter, as an example, because he's here, saying to whomever is going to make these decisions, these are the impacts of having a hoist put exactly where the arbitrator put them. I don't know whether that was a decision that was the only possible decision, but at least their voice could have been heard. So what I would like to say, though, is the CDP has not been issued by the Coastal Commission, and I would urge you guys to make a strong argument there, because they will listen to reason and they will understand user conflicts, and the Coastal Act is designed to protect folks, not just you, but the other side. So they will listen to you. You should definitely make sure that you're heard there. And this is going to come back to us one way or the other. You're absolutely right, whether we like it or not.
Just the series of stupid decisions. It's been staff, it's been the board, it's been just one absurd decision after another has landed us here, and I'm just so frustrated with the whole thing.
Tom? Do you have anything else you want?
No, I just want to make it clear that, I've been consistent all along with the way that I voted, and I will continue to be consistent. I cannot vote for something that I know puts public safety at risk and harms our partners, our businesses on the pier. I mean, it just makes no sense to me at all, and there's no way that I can support that.
Okay. Any other public comment? I have a comment, but if there's any other public comment, I'll take that now.
It's a quick question. Are the minutes of the arbitration process available?
Good question.
There are no minutes, there is the award.
The award is a public document,
Which is right here, and is it in the back of the room?
but the arbitration is not a meeting, so there's technically no minutes. It's just two parties trying to work something out, or with an arbitrator basically making a decision, which is what we're confronted with this item tonight. But hold on, Larry, but the agenda has the cause of action, the exhibit, which has you must have that, yeah, that's all, unless Steve and Adam, there's no other documentation. Yeah,
We would be looking
yeah,
at. Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
For the board's information, would council please explain the difference between a no vote and an abstention?
Sure. The arbitrator has ordered the board to adopt this resolution, and a failure for a majority of the board to adopt this arbitration will have consequences. Adopting requires, with 4 of you here, requires 3 people to vote yes. An abstention does not count as a yes.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Larry, did you want to fill out a public comment card and make a public comment?
He doesn't need to fill out a card.
Oh, okay, because he's the party, the interested party, okay.
I recognize him, whenever he is.
Maybe the lawyers don't want to say, maybe it's, but Mike McKinney was invited, turned us down, and so was Morningstar, Dave Mowry. So like, don't say nobody was invited, everybody's invited. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna make a comment, and we can continue the discussion and we can vote. So as the one person who doesn't live over here, I have been kind of a little distant from it, probably more than my three fellow commissioners. So I'm trying to look at this in a way that is as detached emotionally as I possibly can. And so here's what I've heard from our attorneys. I get that the arbitrator was required to pretty much look at the lease. There's no, she did what she was supposed to do. I know how I voted and why I voted the way I voted, and the second vote that I took, which probably didn't help, I mean, it helped get us here today probably, was that I really feel like when we're in the process of redesigning and really renovating and looking at our capital projects, not just, I'm the one who's concerned about the safety issue as well. I mean, Serena has brought it up, Ed's brought it up, Tom's brought it up, we've all brought up the safety issue. And what I was hoping for was that, I mean, I knew that it could probably turn out like this, but I was hoping that we could all work together to get something that's safe for the public, safe for the businesses. And I just brought Mark Berman and Kevin Mullen to look at the pier, and they loved it, and they thought that the commercial fishing industry, which they knew really nothing about, was fantastic. But we're like walking there, and it's not that safe. I mean, it's not. And it was a beautiful day. There were a lot of people out, even at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. And I just wish that we could work together to actually make something of this. Because what we're seeing right now in the media and all the conflict that's out there, and this has been out there too, isn't helping us. And I'm looking at this from, and I'm not trying to say we should dissolve the district, I don't know, but I'm trying to at least put the best face for the district along with our general manager to the public, which is why I've invited, some of our elected members of, elected office holders. If we don't get the public's involvement in this, they're gonna wonder why we even have this harbor district. And it's going to hurt everybody, including the commercial fishing industry, if this doesn't, if we don't work together, and we're not working together right now. And I get it, Larry, I totally get the business stuff, I totally get the economics, I get that this could harm your business potentially, and it could harm Larry's, but there's a bigger picture here, and if we can't work together to achieve the bigger picture, then I think that the Harbor District is not gonna be the same as it is in structure today, as it will be in the future. And it begs the question, who's gonna have jurisdiction over the Harbor District? So I'm hoping, Larry, that we can, I don't even know where to start, where we can look at this whole pier, which is a lifeline for lifeblood for businesses, not just commercial fishing, but your business, Tom, recreation, everything, right? I want y'all to work with us. We're not trying to, at least I'm not. And I don't think the other commissioners are, but I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm not trying to stiff anybody. What I'm trying to do is make this pier work for everybody. And it's never gonna be perfect. I mean, that's the other, the conundrum that we're in, is that if we approve this, then we are inviting another lawsuit and vice versa. So we're in a no-win situation. So someone's gotta be a winner here, and in my mind, that someone needs to be the public and the people that we serve. Even if it goes against what an arbitrator has to say, because the arbitrator is looking at a very focused situation. But we're the elected body, and this is a county-wide district, and the public has to win. It has to win. Our tax, over half of our tax dollars are going to a public facility. And so how do we make the public, how can we help the public win? And I don't know. But what I do know is that if the public has a chance to win, it's gonna be because we're all working together. And right now, we're not all working together. And so I would love to hear some public comment on how we can all work together. Someone's gotta win. And right now, the parties in this room, no one's gonna win except, I think the public should win. And if we're representatives of the public, then we gotta think long and hard. Please, Steve.
Thank you, President Chancarelli. I agree that a long-term, holistic vision is a desirable outcome, and we have started on that process. We've had a couple of public meetings, and we paused that process when we went through this process. We've got an immediate and discrete situation with one tenant and one hoist
I
and
understand
one
that.
binding arbitration award. We've got another project which is some years in the making by the time we finish our public outreach process, by the time we go through design engineering and permitting for any of the work that we might want to do out there. We're a few years off. I think that a few years will give us an opportunity to work well with the fish buyers, with the other stakeholders out there, come up with that right plan that will help everybody move forward, and will help the public, and will help redevelop the pier, and will help the commercial fishing industry. In the meantime, I think that this is a binding arbitration award, and
I understand that.
this is a short-term issue. If we can put this behind us and then work to possibly patch some wounds and try to get everybody on the same page and pulling in the same direction again, that would be the best outcome for the district, for the stakeholders, and for the public.
How is this
Hold on.
I have a question
So-
when it's my turn.
So I'm gonna be very forthright here. Based on what I've heard, I don't think this is going to pass. So what happens if this doesn't pass?
Turn that over to
Thank you,
the
Steve.
council.
And Steve and
I-
Adam, I do thank y'all for the work that you put into this, so thank you. It's a very tough situation, and you were confined to the issue.
Can you give us a brief moment to
Absolutely.
huddle for a second?
Yeah.
In the meantime, can I ask
Yes,
a question?
yeah.
So, you characterize this as a short term. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, in the context of the holistic approach to.
Are you talking geologic time or?
No, no, it only seems like that sometimes.
Yeah, give
I'm talking,
specifics, please.
5 years. This is something that.
This is a 5-year deal?
No,
Because I didn't see it that way.
no. I think everybody would like to see a new and improved Johnson Pier. And we've had all 3 fish buyers in this room looking and playing on the whiteboard and drawing things up, and looking at the extension of the pier and placing 6 hoists around that pier. That's a 5-year project, so that's the long-term goal. The short-term for me would be just abiding by the binding arbitration and the award, getting that and putting that in. It's not ideal, but hopefully with the sort of cooperation that I've witnessed in this room with the 3 fish buyers, when looking at the big picture, that we can work together to implement that big picture some 5 years down the road perhaps.
Can
So,
I,
yeah, go ahead. Go
I
ahead and
just-
ask the answer to
that-
my question.
that sounds very pie in the sky to me. If that were the case, I don't think that we would be looking at this today. And Steve, you've had plenty of time to meet with the fish fires and try to work something out. You've had, I don't know how many meetings. Apparently that didn't happen because this happened. So, you know, I'm glad that you think positively about it and that you think that there might be some change in the future. But at this point, that is not on the table. We don't know what's gonna happen in the future. What we know right now is that this happened and we have to respond to this. And we know that this is going to create an unfair situation to 2 of our other fish buyers and potentially harm their businesses, which they have told us repeatedly, and that it's gonna create safety hazards now, which I care about on my watch. I care about what happens on my watch. I don't want safety hazards on the pier on my watch. I didn't get elected to allow safety hazards to occur on my watch, and I'm not okay with it. And furthermore,
So.
we have an opportunity right now to say, no, this isn't happening. I don't know what the outcome of that would be. I'd like to hear what these guys have to say.
So in answer to my
So
question.
we're happy to answer your question. We would
Thank
we suggest that you would allow us to answer that question in closed session and adjourn to closed session to answer that question, but it is your decision whether you'd like to follow our recommendation and adjourn to closed session, or if you'd like us to answer you in open session.
I
It's
would like to
entirely up you.
adjourn to closed session.
There's a motion, is there a second to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, we'll adjourn into closed session.
It's gonna be a fun.
17, do we need to make a motion to extend the meeting? Probably, because it's,
Yeah.
why don't we do that?
Sure.
I think we could do this in 15, this part in 15
Okay,
minutes,
okay.
sure.
Okay, so, what we have before us is this recommendation to adopt resolution 1815, which would authorize 3 captains to install and use a second hoisting location on the south side of Johnson Pier described on the map, which is in the public domain as Exhibit A. So is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, so I'm gonna open it up to commissioner discussion. Tom?
One thing I don't want to see is any more money spent on legal fees. We have an award by an arbitrator here, and we don't really have much of a choice, unless we want to increase our legal bills. So whether people want to or not, I think it's important and incumbent upon us to pass this motion.
Ed?
So I voted for this because I'm being forced to vote for it. I don't like it. I think it's absolutely wrong, and we made the decision to get into this with the intention of forcing folks to work together, and unfortunately, the arbiter did not rule in our favor, so we're stuck with this terrible decision. As a commissioner, I'm not happy with it, but I have to vote for it. But I can tell you this, I will be at the Coastal Commission as a member of the public, and I will do my very best to make sure that the Coastal Commission understands the problem that this decision has created, and I will work as hard as I can to change it.
Sabrina?
I just wonder if you could explain what you think the problem is, Commissioner Lorenz. Because you said there's a problem, but you didn't say what.
Well, the problem is is exactly what we talked about before we went into closed session. It creates an exceedingly unsafe situation for everyone. It creates an unfair business practice And it puts the harbor district in the role of creating an unfair business practice, and it puts the harbor district in the role of actually creating a situation that is exceedingly unsafe. And that's absolutely wrong. But we are forced to do this as a commissioner. I have to vote for it because it's just going to cost us more. And
I appreciate you explaining that.
yep, thank you.
So throughout all of this, over the years, I have consistently voted against placing a hoist near the high traffic area on the pier. And I live very close to Pillar Point Harbor. I can walk there, I can ride my bike there, I'm there frequently. I've had the pleasure of being out on the pier many times during very busy fishing season, high traffic, forklifts going crazy, semi-trucks backing up, witnessed some really good times, especially for squid, where things get kind of the craziest, crab too. I know what the safety risks are on that pier, which is why I've been pushing for us to do pier renovation for some time. I understand those safety risks. I know people have been injured on the pier. I know people have been injured on the pier from forklifts because I've heard about it. It's unsafe working condition for the workers, and it's also an unsafe working condition for the public to have to be exposed to. So it's not just that it's the public that's at risk, it's also the workers, it's both. Neither of which are acceptable to me. In addition to that, you know, as I've said before, I believe that placing a hoist in this high traffic location creates an unfair business advantage to one business owner, and there are a total of 3 fish buyers that share space at the end of Johnson Pier. The reason it creates an unfair business practice or business advantage, I'm exhausted by the way, is because it blocks access to the fish buyers' lease space. So this hoist is going to be featured prominently in the way and blocking truck traffic, forklift traffic, pedestrian traffic, you know, all the movement that needs to happen on the pier is happening right at that corner. It's a hot spot. And by putting a hoist there, it means that the other 2 fish buyers are not going to be able to move their product for their customers through in the way that they need to. It's just going to become a complete bottleneck, and we all know it. So I can't support this as much as I would like to vote in a way that stops the bleeding of legal fees. I would very much like to vote for that. I put public safety above legal fees. And I can't in good conscience vote for something that I believe and have personal experience with that puts the public at risk. So for that reason, I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Any other comment? I guess I'm the last person. Is there-
Oh, and I guess I should say one last thing, but I'll
No,
wait.
go ahead.
The other thing is, I do want to preserve my standing and my ability to go to the Coastal Commission and be consistent with all of the votes I've taken on this issue over the years. I want to be able to go to the Coastal Commission as an individual and say, I have never supported this as a good spot for a hoist. I have consistently supported renovating the pier. I believe that is what we should do. I hope we can go to the Coastal Commission with a wonderful plan for pier renovation. I'm very, you know, frustrated that it's taken so long for us to get that plan together. I hope it's forthcoming soon, and I certainly will be voting to support moving it forward. So, you know, I just want to make it clear that it is important to me that I have standing with the Coastal Commission when this item comes to them as an individual. Thank you.
Okay, so, I know how I feel about this, and my initial response would be to abstain. Unfortunately, we need 3/4 of our commissioners to vote on this tonight, and, you know, Commissioner Brennan is gonna vote no, and I totally respect that, and so that means that I have to probably vote yes. But it's a very, very difficult decision for me, not because I don't believe that there are, you know, commercial fishing issues here, but because to me it has always been about the public safety piece. The whole redesign of the pier, that's where the public wins. That's where the public wins, and the public will also win if we don't have to pay another cent for attorney's fees. But it is a very, very hard, I mean, my initial response would be to abstain. But, taxpayers shouldn't be footing the bill on this anymore. I respect my fellow commissioners who want to talk to the Coastal Commission about this as individuals. I would certainly support that, just so that the Coastal Commission understands that public safety is an issue. It is a public issue, and it's an issue that I hope that 3 captains will keep in mind, because it's your pier too. You're paying for it just like we all are across the county. And public safety, you know, if someone gets hurt on your watch, you're liable, just like we are at the Harbor District. And I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but I mean, public safety's been a huge concern of mine, probably more so because I don't live here, and whenever I go out there, I just wander around sometimes because I love it out there. But my decision is going to be based on how does the public win. It was hard because the public safety, I'm not going to give up on the public safety issue, but the public shouldn't have to pay another penny for this. But at the same time, I think that y'all need to think about, 3 captains needs to think about the public as well, because this is not an easy vote for any of us. And I commend my fellow commissioners for feeling like they've had to compromise a little bit, because I think all of us have felt that we've had to compromise a little bit in the name of public safety, at the expense of public safety, and it's a bad place for us to be in. I don't know how we're gonna work together, but I hope we do, because like I said, taxpayers are not gonna put up with this crap anymore. And, I mean, it pains me that I feel, I mean, you know, that I feel like I have to compromise my position on public safety as well. When this issue first came up about unfair,
If I may,
please,
Commissioner Jenkins,
please.
I've got 9:29.
Is there a
Yeah.
motion to
We-
extend the time for about 15
No, we
minutes?
didn't do it.
No, now, we can do it now.
Motion
Yes.
to extend.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we have to do a roll call?
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm very sensitive to the unfair business advantage. In fact, I brought it up with Dave Mallory when this thing first came up. And when we had a conversation, I said, well, how is this help you? And he gave me his answer, but then a few months, well, I don't even remember, a week or a few months, not even a few months, probably about 6 to 9 months later, he felt like it would actually harm him, and it would give him, or it would hurt him competitively from a business standpoint. And I've been on the record as saying this before, that I believe that government should never be in a position to give one person an advantage over another. And that's what I think that, you know, we're doing right now. But again, I don't wanna pay another dime for attorney's fees. But I just think that if we can't work together, everyone loses and the public really loses. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of hits on this from the public's perspective, and I welcome those hits if they come. But I just want y'all to know this is not an easy decision, not because I don't believe in your business, three captains, but I think that the way that this whole thing has kind of been allowed to play out without a holistic picture being viewed is doing a disservice to the public. So I'm balancing that with how much do we need to pay, if any more, as it is we're paying a lot too much. So again, I fully support the commissioners who would like to go to the Coastal Commission. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm just trying to struggle to figure out how I'm gonna vote, but I think that I have to vote this way. But I want my fellow commissioners to understand that I totally support where they're coming from. I'll open it up to public comment right now if there's anyone from the public who would like to make a comment. Larry, please.
The way you're talking, you act like somebody got run over already. I'm the only business out there that has never had an accident. Both of the other business had accidents. I have none. And we're not gonna have any in this new thing we're gonna do. Safety is the first thing we do there. So I mean, all this stuff about traffic and everything else, she says we're on the corner. We're not on the corner. You guys don't even know what you're talking about. Unbelievable. Let's go.
Well, I'm gonna make it very clear
Please
that
treat your
I
wife
don't-
with respect, Larry.
I don't think.
never did.
I don't think that it's safety so much about from one fish buyer. For me, it was always the redesign of the pier and the holistic approach that this commission has wanted to take. It has no one on this commission is blaming any single fish buyer or any single business for putting the public in danger. At least, I mean, that's, I think, I'm speaking for myself too, but from what I'm hearing. But for me, it was always about redesigning the pier so that it is safe for everybody to use. And that is not a secret at all. That's been discussed in previous meetings over the last year. And again, if public safety is, if public safety can be accomplished, then that also helps the public and they win in that way too.
Call for the question.
Okay.
Roll call, Commissioner Brennan,
No.
President Champerelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz.
Aye.
The motion carries.
I'd like to suggest that we just end the meeting now. I mean, it's after 9:30 and we're all exhausted.
Well, item 7 is information only, no action requested. We've all got it in our board packet. I would just like to acknowledge that we've got the information and it's done. So that's my motion.
Well, we have
It doesn't
not-
even- Doesn't even say that we need action on this. So
We
just
don't have
receive the
any
report.
additional action items, so I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Wait, so,
I think you guys are agreeing with each other.
Palmer, what are you saying? Do you want this?
It just says receive report and file.
Yeah.
And then, no action is requested.
Okay, so,
We've received it, and it's not a carryover item.
well, I wanna say, there's one, we can't adjourn the meeting, there's one more item, item 11, and I just wanna make a quick comment that, which is the transition planning, that there's really nothing that came out of close, or the special meeting today, but I do need to discuss with you some dates, unless we can say that now.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about, but you reported that there was nothing
There's
to report
nothing
out
to
of closed
report,
session.
yeah.
Is there something you'd like to talk about in item 11 as a board? as a commission, you're
No,
welcome to.
no, there's nothing, no, so, okay. So what do you wanna do? Do you wanna just, do you
We
want?
received the report and we finished our agenda.
Okay, so
We have not received any report, we are ending our agenda. Let's just have
There's
step
a-
roll
there's a-
over.
There's a motion to adjourn, but I haven't heard a second yet. Is there a second?
Well, wait, so,
We
so
have a
wait,
second.
Sabrina, hold on, what do you mean you have not, we have not received the report?
I'm saying that items that we haven't gotten to can go later.
Yeah.
Let's end the meeting. Adjourn. Go home. Go to sleep. That's what I mean.
And
We
you
have,
say
we
receive
have
the
a
report.
motion and a
Does it
second.
matter?
There's no action required.
But you wanna receive the report?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that,
Yeah, that's what I said.
yeah, but she's saying not to receive the report and wants to adjourn, so,
There's nothing to do.
There's
There's
no
nothing
action
to do.
required on any other
I
item.
got it,
And,
okay.
and so, clearly there are items that need to come back at some point. We will need to talk about it at the point, sometime we will need to talk about, or you will need to talk about general manager. But
Yeah.
there's no other items to be added. There's a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
President Shanks.
Aye, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:36. Thanks.